police shortage, and maybe it's not even a police shortage. It depends on how you look at what's happening right now. I was at the airport, came into an international airport here in South Florida yesterday, and a place where there have been, where there was a shooting years ago, and the local law enforcement is tasked with providing, in addition to like Border Patrol and TSA, they're supposed to be there to protect and defend us, the citizen, the everyday citizen. And I watched a sheriff's deputy staring at his phone, watching some loud show for the entire time we were there. We were waiting for our bag, maybe 45 minutes from an international flight. And this cop, sheriff's deputy, he was just staring at his phone for a good 45 minutes and had no situation awareness, nothing. And there were other law enforcement people there that could take care of things if something happened. But my point is, when there's a police shortage or when there's a breakdown, they couldn't even protect. Last week, we know there was an incident on an international figure. They couldn't even keep him safe. So when things are happening around us, which are sending us messages, alarm bells are going off saying that we need to protect and defend ourselves, protect and defend our families. How do we do that? And law enforcement is designed, their job is to respond, right? So you call them, they come, hopefully they take care of things, but it's usually after or during an incident. What we want to do is be able to protect and defend ourselves when there's a police shortage or there's a breakdown for whatever reason. And we can see the breakdown happening all around us. We have, when we go to church, there's usually a law enforcement person or a hired security guard armed standing in front of the church as you're walking in. And I can promise every time I walk in, if I stand and watch long enough, I'm going to see that person. And to her credit, there was a law enforcement officer a couple weeks ago. She was alert and she was paying attention. But every other weekend, there's an armed security guard, and this guy is just staring at his phone. So the point is, you need to take responsibility for protecting and defending yourself and your family wherever you are. And the first thing you have to do is situational awareness. Once we get past that, I want to talk about some weapons, some self-defense tools that you can carry, and something that you might not be able to carry, but you can carry an alternative to protect yourself in addition to if you carry one of these. Now, the reason I don't talk about carrying one of these on this channel is I teach hand-to-hand self-defense, and I teach traditional weapons and how to modify weapons you might find in your environment, use them in a traditional way to defend yourself and your family. I don't teach this type of self-defense, but I do carry myself. So it's not that I'm against that. That's just not what this channel is about. And I understand most people can't carry that. We just came back from a trip to a country where you are not even allowed to carry a knife. You can't even carry a small pocket knife. You certainly can't carry one of these, and you don't see them anywhere. Even the law enforcement, you rarely see somebody with a self-defense tool that shoots projectiles or whatever. But you can defend yourself, and we're going to talk first about the baton. And this is a collapsible baton that you see a lot of law enforcement carry. They used to carry the long one that would go on your duty belt. And the one I carried, a side handle, PR-24, which came out and long, and it's chunky. You get in and out of the car, you got to put it in every time. And then they went to these. This is the friction style. They make a friction style which stays open with friction, and then they make the kind that is spring-loaded and pop open and closed. And usually you'll see it'll come with one of these, and law enforcement will carry this on their belt. Now, in some states, you're allowed to carry these for self-defense, and if it's concealed, as long as you have a concealed carry weapon license, you can carry an expandable baton, or in some places you can open carry it, depending on what the state. But check with the laws. I'm not a lawyer, but check with the laws in your state if you're allowed to carry something like this. Now, the benefit of something like this is that you have reach, especially if they have a weapon like a blade, they have a knife or a machete, then you have some reach advantage when you have this, and you're able to strike with angular strikes. You can strike vertically coming down on top. You can strike horizontally coming this way and then coming back in the other direction. You can bring it up between the legs or up under the chin. Maybe he's reaching, smashing there for self-defense. And you can use this very effectively using the back end when you choke up on it a little bit. So in other words, you're not going to hold it at the very end. You bring it up here. You're still going to have a lot of weight because these things are hard metal. Usually this one's made by Monadnock in Taiwan. And this one is going to break bones if it has to. You can always understand that when you hit a joint, that's going to break easier than hitting the bone. But the idea of this is to keep somebody off of you when you have to protect and defend your family. There's a police shortage, or there's a breakdown in coverage, or you don't want to wait for the police response. You need to be more proactive, and you need to defend your family. So remember, police officers, law enforcement, they're there to respond to what's happening, and someone will call them. Hopefully, if they're close enough, they'll see it. But by the time they get there, it might be too late for you and your family. And so you want to learn how to defend yourself using these different tools. Thank you, Studer, for that super chat. Really appreciate that. Very generous. So the first thing I want you to do is just practice with these sticks for self-defense. Are the angular strikes, and then the vertical strike, going down and then coming up. And notice when you come up, you turn your palm up so that when you run into someone's body, it doesn't peel out of your hand. If you're this way, it's going to just come right back or right out that way, coming across horizontally in both directions. And then think about the targets that you would remove or destroy. What can you remove or destroy using violence against violence? That's the principle of When Violence is the Answer by Tim Larkin. I put the link in the description below. You want to see what that book's all about, the principles of self-defense, what's going to keep you safe and help you protect and defend your family. And the first principle, situation awareness, pay attention. Once you're in the middle of the fight, you can't run, you can't hide, you can't get away, you can't freeze. I heard a really good description recently. They said instead of run, hide, or instead of fight or flight and freeze, there's a fourth, which is photograph, or whip out your phone and start to take pictures. Because it seems that's what people are doing these days. Some run away, some just freeze out of fear, some have to fight or will fight, and then everybody else has got their camera out taking pictures. Anyway, bizarre, but that's the reality we live in. People are living through their screens instead of living in the now. So practice these basic strikes. Now, this is a great option. You can also grab it with two hands and smash, going through the teeth or the throat or the chin. And if you're concerned that this is going to collapse because this is a friction baton, this is not going to collapse when you're pushing this way. If you step in and you hit this way, it might collapse as you go into his body. But you can see when I close on the floor, you have to hit it with a lot of force to get it to start to close. And then, and that's on the hard concrete. So usually you can't just hit it against your hand, you can't hit it against your leg to close it. If you've ever had one of these or used one of these, you've got to hit it against a hard surface just to break that friction friction lock, and then it's going to close. And this is really powerful too. You can use this as it is closed, or as it is as you pull it out, without opening it, by using the backside here. You can strike the person behind you. Maybe he's coming up quickly. As long as you choke up a little bit and using it here. It's also a loaded fist. That means it's not going to collapse as much when you hit. You're going to create more knockout power, more stopping power. So that's the expandable baton when there's a police shortage or there's a breakdown in society. Like I said, we're not going to get into politics or any of that kind of stuff here, but we saw recently a great, whatever it was, whatever the conspiracy theories are that might become fact later, whatever happened a week ago in Pittsburgh, or outside of Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania. It was a major breakdown of all kinds of levels of law enforcement, and the people who were hired to protect and defend weren't able to do their basic job. And like I said, I see it every day because I'm looking for it and paying attention to it. And yesterday we flew in, we got into the airport here locally from an international flight, get off, waiting for the bags. The first thing I noticed, I always take a picture and I send it to my friend who's a Secret Service guy, retired. And he's a guru, Tim Miller. We talk about him a little bit. And I say, here's another one. And I've got, my phone is just full of law enforcement guys inside churches, at schools, in public places. And this guy, and he's leaning up against the I always call it stanchion because I was a Marine, against the post. He's leaning up. He's got his legs crossed. He's got one hand like this on his hip, and he's just watching his phone for a good 45 minutes. You can hear whatever. I couldn't make it out because my ears are so bad, but you could hear some show that he's watching. He's kind of laughing and joking, and he doesn't look up. I have another one from the security guard at the church a couple weeks ago, and I counted 7 minutes before he looked up and looked around. And I'm thinking, I want to feel safe when I bring my family out into public. We go and we do the things that are important to us. And so I take personal responsibility for that. Now, I also conceal carry, especially when I go into public places where there's a big crowd and there's poor security. And these days, that's what's happening around us. There's this breakdown in the fabric of society that's affecting our ability to stay safe and keep our families safe. And even when we call law enforcement, as they respond, it might be too late. So we want to train in first aid medical. I also carry, I've got tourniquets, 2 tourniquets, and I carry chest seals, because in an active shooting, the most common injury are sucking chest wounds. So you can learn, you can learn it online. I learned it in the military, but you can learn how to apply life-saving care to keep somebody alive long enough to get them to the hospital and not expire. So you should learn how to do that, learn how to protect your family, protect and defend. We're going to talk about the Tambo. And when we were in Nicaragua, and in Nicaragua, I'm not going to say much about that country and their politics because it's different than ours here, but you cannot carry any self-defense tools that you might be familiar with. You certainly can't carry the baton, but the beaches, which we were staying by the beach, are littered in this beautiful driftwood. And this is one of the hardest woods I've found, especially as it comes to driftwood. And obviously someone's cut it. And so I found what we call the Tambo, and it's just the perfect self-defense tool. And so I was able to carry this with me as an option for self-defense. I want to show you how to use this one. This is usually an 18-inch stick. I make these, or you can make one. You go to Lowe's or Home Depot, get yourself a 36-inch dowel rod, about 1 inch or 1.25 inches, depending on how big your hands are and how heavy you want it to hit. Then you cut it in half, 18 inches, sand it down, oil it up, and you have the perfect self-defense tool, which is very much, it's a baton. It's the same thing as the expandable baton, but it's not as conspicuous. And, you can tell them it's a dough roller. You can carry it around. I carry these things, and it's kind of like it's like a moving meditation for me. I like to spin it through the fingers. I like to do different things with it. It's just like a fidget stick. Tell me you got the ADHD and you need your fidget stick. So anyway, these are the ones that I make. If you want to see the basic description, it's in the description below. Anyway, this one is the one I picked up from the beach, packed it in the carry-on or the take-home luggage, checked bags, and have my souvenir Tambo from the beach. Now, the first way you're going to hold it is like this. So you're going to have a little bit coming out the top. The benefit of this is that if he grabs it, you have leverage, you have the long end. He's got the short end of the stick, literally. From this position, you get your hands up, always cover your head, always get that other hand up. You can jab straight in, striking with this hard piece of wood, striking his teeth, his nose, his throat. Question is, what can you remove or destroy for self-defense? You're looking for his ability to see or breathe temporarily, permanently, his ability to breathe here and stand up, crush that cartilage in his solar plexus. That'll put him on the ground. He's not going to be able to move very well. Between the belly button and the private parts, jabbing down here. You can also bring it in to the jaw, into the temple, into the neck. So you can thrust here, you can jab here. You can bring it back in this opposite direction, sticking it in his face this way. You can bring it up under his chin, smashing the teeth, maybe his tongue sticking out. You smash his teeth, his tongue comes popping out, break his teeth in his mouth. You can then bring it up this way, jabbing in here, reverse jab, coming into his ear, down into his throat or into the top of his chest for self-defense. You can bring it straight up into his body, jamming this way. You can bring it low into the ribs, that soft, or under the ribs, that soft tissue between the ribs and the hip bone, smashing everything in there. You can bring it back this way. He's behind you. You stick it into him this way, turning and hitting this way, swinging hard, coming down. You can slide it up from here. And now you have all those same basic angles that you did with your expandable baton, coming down at the diagonal, coming through the horizontal, straight down on the top of his head, or coming up under his chin, or hitting that hand, hitting that wrist, hitting the elbow, hitting up between the legs, or you can strike the legs. You can strike low, you can strike high, and you're able to keep somebody off, you have reach advantage like you did with the baton, and you're simply using a stick. Now, you might not have the stick with you, but like I was walking along the beach with my son. We were going for morning walks, and I'm not kidding, the beach was just, there were thousands and thousands of all different sizes. We got some good walking sticks. We got some good staffs. We got some good bunch of these that we were playing around with. And we got one of these. And this is the Yawara pocket stick. Now, this is the one that I make. Again, this is something you can make and bring with you. It's just a simple palm stick. Close it in your hand, smash, jab, bring it up, bring it down on top, stick it in his eye, and you defend yourself with it. You can also use a marker, Sharpie, same thing. Loaded weight in your hand. Or this is what I carry every time I travel. I carry this in my carry-on. You blind them with it, or you can close your hand, jab. There's that nice bevel there. Stick that in that top and then that flesh, and that'll do a lot of damage for self-defense. But the question is, what can you remove or destroy when there's a police shortage or a breakdown in society, and you have to protect and defend yourself, protect and defend your family? How do you do that? You can always be your own protector. Don't wait for someone to come and save you, but learn how to defend yourself and defend your rights, defend your freedoms, your God-given freedom. Anyway, thanks again, Studer. You guys are awesome, and I will see you in a little bit. We're going to do these again tomorrow.